Topic, and the topic is British conquest of Bengal. So in this lesson we are going to study about the background of the British conquest of Bengal, then what was the Farman, then Siraj ud Dawla who was Siraj ud Dawla, then Black Hole tragedy, then Battle of Plassey, then Mir Jafar who was Mir Qasim, then the Battle of Buxar, a very important battle which changed the scenario in India. And then after we will study about dual government. So let's start with the background. So the beginnings of British political power over India may be traced to the Battle of Plassey in 1757, when the English East India Company forces defeated Siraj ud Dawla, the Nawab of Bengal. So the earlier British struggle with the French in South India had been a dress rehearsal, and the lessons learned there were profitably applied in Bengal. So we have seen that there was Carnatic wars going on between the British, the East India Company and the French East India Company. So that was a good experience for them. They had learned a lot of lessons, and these lessons were cleverly applied in the Bengal. So Bengal was the most fertile and the richest of India's provinces. That's why Bengal was very important, and its industries and commerce were well developed, and the East India Company and its servants had highly profitable trading interests in the provinces, in the province, mainly the Bengal province. That's why Bengal was very important for them for the conquest. So the company had secured valuable privileges in 1717 under the royal Farman by the Mughal emperor. And what was this royal Farman? Actually, this Farman was the bone of contention, and this Farman only led to the battles which were fought in Bengal. So according to this Farman, which was issued by the Mughal emperor in 1717, the East India Company got special privileges. This granted the company the freedom to export and import their goods in Bengal without paying taxes, and the right to issue passes or dastaks for the movement of such goods. Do you understand anything by this? This means the East India Company was allowed to trade without paying any tax, any custom duty, and they were allowed to issue passes. Passes means the dastaks. Okay, the dastak was the pass which was issued by the company itself for this trade, the duty-free trade in Bengal. So the company's servants were also permitted to trade but were not covered by this Farman. Now company's servants were allowed, but they had to pay the taxes. The servants who were engaged in the private trade, they had to pay the taxes. Only the company was exempted. Only company. Okay, remember this. Only company was exempted. And not the servants. So remember this. So only the company was exempted and not the servants, but servants were allowed, means the servants of the East India Company, they were allowed to trade in India, but they had to pay the taxes. But company, for the company, it was duty free, the tax free trade for company. So they were required to pay the same taxes as Indian merchants, who the servants of East India Company. They were required to pay the same taxes as Indian merchants, and this Farman was a perpetual source of conflict between the company and the Nawabs of Bengal. So for one, it meant the loss of revenue to the Bengal government, and second, the power to issue dastaks for the company's goods was misused by the company's servants to evade taxes on their private trade. So as I have told you that only the company was exempted and not the servants, not the private trade of the company's servants. So the company's servant had to pay taxes. Means servants means those who were working in the company, they were allowed for the private trade, but they had to pay taxes. But many times this East India Company servants, they misused that farman or the dastak, and they also engaged in the duty free trade. So they misused the farman or the dastak. So this was a bone of contention between the East India Company and the the Nawabs of Bengal. So all the Nawabs of Bengal from Murshid Quli Khan to Alivardi Khan had objected to the English interpretation of the Farman of 1717. So the English interpreted that all the Englishmen are, allowed to trade freely without paying any taxes. But the Farman said that no, only the company is allowed to trade freely, but the private trade which is conducted by the servants of the company will have to be taxed, and they will have to pay taxes. So there was a different interpretation from the side of East India Company and a different interpretation from the side of the Nawabs of Bengal. So they had compelled the company to pay lump sums to their treasury and firmly suppressed the misuse of the stocks, the Nawabs. Okay, so the company had been compelled to accept the authority of the Nawabs in the matter, but its servants had taken every opportunity to evade and defy this authority. So servants were engaged in the private trade, they were not paying taxes, and this was going on. So this is actually, this is the background. So matters came to a head in 1756 when the young and quick-tempered Siraj ud Dawla succeeded his grandfather Alivardi Khan. Now Siraj ud Dawla became the Nawab of Bengal, and he demanded of the English that they should trade on the same basis as in the times of Murshid Quli Khan. That means they should pay taxes, and the servants of East India Company will not be allowed to trade freely. The servants will have to pay taxes. So the English refused to comply as they felt strong after their victory over the French in South India. Now recently the Carnatics war, where the Carnatics war were ended, and the British had gained victory in South India in the Carnatic wars. So they were also feeling, they were overconfident, not overconfident, they were quite confident actually that we'll be able to manage, we'll be able to deal with the Nawab of Bengal. So they refused to comply as they felt strong. Okay, so is the image of Siraj ud Dawla, who took strong measures against East India Company at that time. Now what happened? So the breaking point came when, without taking the Nawab's permission, the company began to fortify Calcutta in expectation of the coming struggle with the French, who were stationed at this time at Chandler Nagor. Now this was the reason. This is very important and you should remember this, because lot of questions have come on this point, that the breaking point was, the immediate reason was the fortification of Calcutta. So what happened, the English East India Company started to fortify the fort in Calcutta. They started fortifications around the fort, started to build a big wall around the fort, because they thought that the French who were stationed in Chandler Nagor, the French may attack Kolkata, and there may be a conflict between them, there may be a battle between them. For that purpose, the English East India Company started fortifications as a preventive measure in Kolkata. Now by this, the Nawab of Bengal, the Siraj ud Dawla, was not happy. Siraj rightly interpreted this action as an attack upon his sovereignty, because only the king was allowed, only the Nawab was allowed to fortify the forts, not the traders, because East India Company was a trading company, it was not the rulers. So in the words, Siraj was willing to let the Europeans remain as merchants but not as masters. So this was the immediate reason. What? The fortification of Calcutta. So he ordered both the English and the French to demolish their fortifications at Calcutta and Chandarnagar and to desist from fighting each other. So he ordered both parties like English and French, because the English were thinking that French may attack them. That's why they started fortification, and French also started fortification because they had doubts in their mind that the English may attack them. So both the parties started fortifications of their factories, of their forts. But Nawab Sirajud-Dowla told both parties to desist from fighting and to demolish their fortification. The French, here is the fortification of Calcutta. Okay, so what happened next? So while the French company obeyed his order, the English company refused to do so. English people, the English East India Company say that we won't demolish our fortification, you do what you want to do. So Siraj-ud-Dawla prevented the English from fortifying Fort William. This Fort William was a fort in Calcutta. So he prevented East India Company from fortifying the Fort William. Here's the image of a Fort William, the fort. Here you can see the Fort William fort. So however, the English refused to stop the new fortification, which prompted the Nawab to attack their factory at Qasim Bazar. Now, when English East India Company refused to demolish the fortification, by this thing, Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla was agitated and he attacked the factory at Qasim Bazar, the English factory at Qasim Bazar. And then next what happened? The Nawab captured Fort William and taking 146 English prisoners. Okay. He attacked Fort William and took 146 Englishmen prisoners. Now this is also one important thing. The first thing is the fortification of Calcutta. That is one reason. Second reason is, first reason was that fortification of Calcutta. Because of that, Siraj-ud-Dawla attacked English. And again, when Siraj-ud-Dawla attacked English, he took 146 Englishmen as prisoners from Fort William. And now this turned all the course of the situation. So taking 146 Englishmen prisoners, hold up in a very small room in which 123 died on 20th June 1756 out of suffocation and only 23 survived. So English historians describe this incident as a black hole tragedy. That means when Siraj-ud-Dawla took prisoners, this 146 English prisoners, and he put them into the a small room, and that room was not having proper ventilation also, and because of improper ventilation, the prisoners felt suffocated and 123 died in that room, in that black hole. Actually the room was called a black hole. So here you can see the image of a black hole where the Pindaris are standing out as guarding the black hole. That is the small room which was without ventilation, any light or proper light. Okay, so in that room the 123 prisoners died and 23 survived. So English historians call this as a black hole tragedy. So this is called as a black hole tragedy. Now lot of questions in various UPSC exams, various competitive exams have been asked on this, a black hole tragedy. What is the black hole tragedy in modern Indian history? So this is the black hole tragedy where Siraj-ud-Dawla imprisoned the 146 English prisoners, and in that 123 died out of suffocation because of improper ventilation. So this incident instigated the English at Chennai to send a relieving force under Robert Clive along with Admiral Watson to Bengal. Now some of the Englishmen, they were able to run away from Fort William, and they asked for help from Madras. The Madras was the next station of the East India Company. So from Chennai, a relieving force came under Robert Clive. Robert Clive said that you have killed 146, you have killed 123 English person. I will take revenge of this. So under Robert Clive, a new reinforcement came for the help of British East India Company, the English East India Company to Bengal. So what happened? So the British retaliation started with hatching a conspiracy against the Nawab in alliance with his Mir Bakshi, Mir Jafar. Now, when the Robert Clive came, he came for the help of the Britishers, the English East India Company in Bengal. He came from Chennai, and when he came, he started to plan a conspiracy. He thought that it is better to defeat a enemy by conspiring and not to fighting in openly, enemy, especially enemy like Sirajuddaulah. So he hatched a conspiracy against Sirajuddaulah. How? He made an alliance with Mir Bakshi, that is Mir Jafar. This Mir Jafar was commander in chief of the armed forces of Sirajuddaulah. See, so he bribed this Mir Jafar, and he told him that you come on our side. Then again the Manik Chand, the officer in charge of Calcutta, he was also in that alliance with the English East India Company. Then Amir Chand, a rich merchant from Bengal, he was also he also helped the English East India Company. Then Jagat Seth, the biggest banker of Bengal, he also helped the English East India Company. And Khadim Khan, he was also with English East India Company. So lot of people, big people, influential people joined this English East India Company, and so Khadim Khan, who commanded a large number of Nawab's troops. So by this there was an alliance against Sirajuddaulah, which was led by English East India Company. So Clive marched towards Plassey on 23rd June 1757. Why? To avenge the Black Hole tragedy, because it is said that the Sirajuddaulah was responsible for the death of 123 English prisoners. So when Clive came to Bengal, he made an alliance with lot of people, and then after he marched towards Plassey on 23rd June 1757, which was near the Nawab's capital of Murshidabad. So the forces came to Plassey, and as agreed earlier, Mir Jafar, the commander-in-chief of Sirajuddaulah, did not take up arms against the English army, and on the other hand, Nawab's soldiers fled from battlefield. So there was actually no battle. The commander-in-chief himself was not fighting. So Mir Jafar, he deceived Sirajuddaulah, and he did not fight. The forces of Sirajuddaulah did not fight, and Sirajuddaulah, a lot of his troops, soldiers, they also ran away from the battlefield, because they saw that a huge portion of the army of Sirajuddaulah is not fighting, because Mir Jafar had instructed them to not fight against East India Company. So in this way Sirajuddaulah lost that battle. So later the Nawab was killed, the Sirajuddaulah was killed by Mir Jafar's son Miran. Now remember this, the Battle of Plassey was won by Britishers by using tricks and not valor. Okay, so remember this, they did not even fight in the Battle of Plassey. There was actually no fight, because the huge portion of the forces of Sirajuddaulah did not participated in the battlefield, and that's why the Nawab of Bengal Sirajuddaula had to run away, and later on he was chased by Miran, son of Mir Jafar, and later on he was killed. So English victory in the Battle of Plassey was pre-decided. So it was not the superiority of the military power, but the conspiracy that helped the English in winning the battle. So Mir Jafar, the commander-in-chief of the Nawab, was awarded the Nawabship by, by Clive for his support to the English. Because Mir Jafar, Mir Jafar was loyal to English East India Company. That's why he was, after the death of Sirajuddaula, Mir Jafar was awarded the Nawabship of Bengal. Now Mir Jafar became new Nawab of Bengal. So Mir Jafar responded to this favor by paying a sum of rupees 1 crore and 77 lakhs. Just try to imagine this amount at that time, 1 crore and 77 lakhs to the company, and large sums to the company officers as a bribe for making him Nawab of Bengal. He just stayed away from the battle, and then again he gave lot of money, and in this way Mir Jafar became new Nawab of Bengal after Sirajuddaula. But Mir Jafar could not support the ever increasing demands of English, who were also suspicious about his collaboration with the Dutch trading company. So Mir Jafar, again he was in difficulty, because he was not in good terms with the East India Company, because the demands of East India Company were ever increasing, and it did not end. There was no end for the demands of East India Company. So Mir Jafar was deposed in 1760, and Mir Qasim was placed on the throne by the British. Why? Because Mir Jafar did not meet the demands of English East India Company. That's why he was done away with, and new Nawab was installed in the puppet throne of Bengal, and that new Nawab was Mir Qasim, the new puppet Nawab. So the new Nawab assigned English the district of Burdwan, Midnapur and Chittagong. So Mir Qasim gave them 3 districts: Burdwan, Midnapur and Chittagong, for the expenses of British army which was to help him. So that he gave actually 3 districts, so that the British could maintain and manage their army, so that in case the Nawab needs the help of British army, it can be available for the help of Nawab. So the Nawab succeeded in establishing a better system of administration. New Nawab, that is Mir Qasim, and he succeeded in establishing a better system of administration, but he came into conflict with the British in Bengal on the question of a privilege, that is a duty-free private trade of the company. Again, you try to remember, again this is the same bone of contention. Earlier, it was the same problem which was there between Sirajuddaula and the East India Company. The same problem arose again with Mir Qasim and East India Company. Why? Because again the servants of East India Company were engaged in the private trade, and they were not paying taxes, and that's why Mir Qasim said that you are not allowed to trade, you are not allowed to do private trade without paying any taxes. You will have to pay taxes for your private trade. Only the company is exempted from the taxation, not the servants. So again the same bone of contention. So is the image of Mir Qasim, then new Nawab. So Mir Qasim proposed plan about equal trade duties for British and Indian traders, and this was turned down by the British Council at Calcutta. He said that you pay the same taxes as the taxes which are paid by Indian traders, but the Britishers, the British Council declined this proposal. Declined this proposal. So Mir Qasim, in the circumstances, remitted all duties on Indians and the British alike for 2 years. So what did the Mir Qasim do? He was also a clever man. He said that you are not paying taxes, then I will exempt Indian traders also from paying any tax, so that there will be equality. So Britishers did not like this, that no, only we are exempted, Indians will have to pay the taxes. So this measure deprived the British private traders of privileged position, and they had created for themselves. They could not compete with Indian traders on equal terms, because when Mir Qasim, he exempted Indian traders from paying taxes like the Britishers, because Britishers were not paying taxes for their private trade also. So Britishers did not like it. The English East India Company, the servants did not like it. So the Nawab's attempts to reorganize the army and shifting of capital from Murshidabad to Mongyar were also taken as unforgivable offenses by the company. So what happened? Firstly, Mir Qasim exempted Indian traders from paying taxes like the Britishers, and second, he shifted his capital from Murshidabad to Mongyar, and this was not liked by the English East India Company. So again, the war broke out between Mir Qasim and the company in 1763. So Mir Qasim escaped to Awadh to organize a confederacy with Shuja ud Dawla, the Nawab of Awadh. Then Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, in a final bid to oust the English from Bengal. Now Mir Qasim, after a war broke out in 1763, he ran away to Awadh, and when he went to Awadh, he convinced Shuja ud Dawla, the Nawab of Awadh, to make an alliance with him, and he also convinced Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. So there was alliance between these three: Mir Qasim, Shah Alam II, and Shuja ud Dawla, the Awadh Nawab of Awadh. So there were three Nawabs on one side, three forces on one side, and Britishers on other side. So 1 versus 3. Okay, 1 versus 3. So the combined armies of the three powers fought the Battle of Buxar with English army commanded by Major Monro on October 22, 1764. Now this three allied forces, they met at Buxar, and there was a battle between these allied forces and English East India Company, and English East India Company was commanded by Major Monro. Now this is very important. Major Monro was the commander of English East India Company in the Battle of Buxar. Remember this, my friends. Don't forget this. This may be a question in our exam. Major Monro was commander of Battle of Buxar of East India Company. So with a decisive victory at Buxar, the British army overran Awadh. So these combined forces were destroyed by English East India Company in the Battle of Buxar. Completely destroyed. And this time it was the military superiority, not any conspiracy. So in Battle of Plassey, we have seen that Battle of Plassey, English East India Company did not even fight, and English East India Company won by hatching a conspiracy against the Nawab without fighting. But in Battle of Buxar, military power was important. Battle of Buxar, English East India Company was able to win because of military power, the superior military power. Okay, so is the image of Battle of Buxar, in which the three combined forces, in which Shuja-ud-Dawla of the Nawab of Awadh, Shuja-ud-Dawla, the Nawab of Awadh, then Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, and Mir Qasim. These three were defeated in Battle of Buxar. So what happened next? So the British gave Emperor Shah Alam II possession of Kara and Allahabad. After the defeat, they gave the position of Kara and Allahabad to the Shah Alam II, Mughal Emperor. And while he granted them the Diwani of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha, and in return for a regular annual payment of 26 lakhs of rupees. So the Battle of Buxar made the English virtually the masters of Bengal, as it also proved their military superiority and unchallenged power. So after winning the Battle of Buxar, Britishers, the English East India Company, emerged as a superior power in Bengal and virtually the master of Bengal. So as a result of his success in Bengal, Robert Clive was appointed the first Governor General of Bengal, and he consolidated the British power both in Bengal and in Deccan. Okay, so Robert Clive was the man behind all the planning. His mind was working always. So he was very powerful at that time, and he was appointed as the first Governor General of Bengal. Remember this. Who was the first Governor General of Bengal? I'm not talking about India. I'm talking about Bengal. So first Governor General of Bengal was Robert Clive. Okay. So here's the image of Shah Alam II, and he was defeated in the Battle of Buxar. So in this, the Britishers got the Diwani right of Bihar, Odisha, and Bengal. That is to collect the taxes. Diwani rights means to collect the taxes, to collect the revenue. So the company acquired Diwani functions from Shah Alam II, Emperor Shah Alam II, and Nizamat functions from Subedar of Bengal. And for the exercise of Diwani functions, the company appointed two deputy Diwans, Muhammad Reza Khan for Bengal and Raja Shitab Roy for Bihar. And Muhammad Reza Khan acted as deputy Nizam. So this agreement was known as dual government, wherein the administration of Bengal was carried out by the two heads, with the Nawab of Bengal being the nominal head of, and the company as the Diwan controlled the revenue as well as police and judicial powers. So there was dual government. That means one, the Mughal emperor was there, and the Nawab of the Nawab of Bengal was the nominal head, and the company was responsible for collecting the revenue and the police jurisdiction and the law and order. So there was two governments in the province, so Nawab of Bengal and company. So this was called as dual government, where dual control was there. So that's all about the British conquest of Bengal. In our next lesson, we are going to study about the Anglo-Mysore Wars. What were these Anglo-Mysore Wars?